Good day, grade 12s. We are going to look at leadership and management today. We dealt with the key concepts yesterday, so today we're going to build on some content. The definition of management, what is management? We saw yesterday that management has 4 functions. It would be planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So the management is in charge of the coordination of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling their employees in order to achieve goals. As I said yesterday, management is in charge of planning activities, planning who does the delegation of tasks, the planning in the organization. When tasks are delegated, for example, they need to organize the resources. So once delegation has happened and the planning was done, they have to make sure that each person, each employee in charge of a specific task is allocated with the correct resources in order to perform that task. They have to lead by example. Okay, in other words, they need to motivate the employees to want to achieve their goals. And ultimately, they need to control whether employees actually did what they were supposed to do. A person becomes a manager because of the position in which he is appointed. All right, so managers are appointed into positions of leadership as a result of their work ethic or their experience or their qualifications, but you need to be appointed as a manager. Obviously, not everybody can be a manager. It is a position that you apply for, and then one person will be appointed. Managers have power because of the authority that they get once they are appointed into that position. All right, so management is always a position of authority, and you have power over the employees as a result of the position that you have been appointed into. So what is leadership? It is very important that you understand the difference between management and leadership. When we look at leadership, that is the ability of an individual to influence and guide followers or other members of the organization. So in other words, a leader is a person that is able, through his actions and his words, to influence other people. Okay, in the business, it would be other employees or colleagues, and guide them to, for example, reach the goals of the business. All right. So it's an ability that a person has to influence others, to kind of almost make them do what you want them to do. So it's the ability to inspire and motivate subordinates to perform in order to achieve their goals. All right, so as I said, a leader is a person that can motivate other people, the employees, the colleagues, even superiors, to perform in a certain way, to do certain things so that an outcome can be achieved. Very important is that leadership cannot be taught. It is not a quality that you can teach someone. It can be learned, all right? So you yourself as a person can learn to have more leadership qualities, but it is not something that somebody can teach you. Mostly, this is an ability that some people are born with. Okay, you've heard it said that some people are born leaders, for example. Okay, so it's a quality that somebody just has. And there's certain people, we just listen to them and we follow their instructions because that is just how the way they are. They're able to motivate us. We want to kind of do what they want us to do. Okay, it involves establishing a clear vision and sharing it with others so that they can willingly follow. All right, a true leader doesn't, in the true sense of the word, force anybody to do anything. A true leader inspires people and they willingly kind of do what the leader wants them to do. All right, but very important that the leader establish a vision so that people can know, okay, this is what we are moving towards, this is what we want to achieve. And then you motivate people to want to achieve that goal. A leader steps up in times of crisis. Okay, generally a leader is a person that can think on his feet Okay, think and act creatively in difficult situations. So a leader generally can think outside of the box. If a leader is put in a crisis situation, they generally are able to think quickly and they can act immediately, and they can think of creative ways to solve a difficult situation. All right, so in the crisis times, the leaders are the ones that will think of solutions, and they will inspire people to work with them to reach those solutions, to reach those goals. Okay, as I said, it is very important to understand what the difference is between leadership and management. Right, we said leadership is the ability to influence human behavior. It is a quality that a person has that enables them to influence how other people think and behave. A manager guides human behavior. All right, so a management will set certain guidelines, and they will, for example, prescribe procedures and say, right, this is what has to be done, this is when it has to be done by, and these are the guidelines. So management provides guidelines for human behavior. Leaders communicate by means of interaction, all right, so through interaction with other people, through their own behavior, by getting people to buy into their vision, by using their charm, they can get people to willingly kind of follow their lead and do as the leader wants them to do. Whereas managers communicate through management functions. All right, so the top manager, for example, will give instructions to the middle manager, who will give instructions to the lower level manager, who will then give instructions to the employees. All right, so managers basically gives instructions, whereas leaders communicate through interaction and through setting the example and motivating people. Leaders encourage new ideas to increase productivity. Remember, we said a leader is a person that can think on his feet and that can think of creative solutions in crisis situations. Whereas managers, they will basically just administer the plan or the program, the tasks. They will delegate the tasks to make sure that targets are reached. All right, and obviously in management, obviously the manager will give instructions, they will pass the plans on to their subordinates, and they will delegate the tasks to different people to make sure that ultimately their targets are reached. Leaders will inspire staff to trust and support each other. All right, so as we said, leaders are inspirational. They, through their charm and their charisma, they will inspire staff and other people, their colleagues, to trust and support each other so that they can work together in order to reach their goal. Whereas in management, they control systems and procedures to get the job done. All right, so leadership is more about cooperation between different people, and management, once again, is giving an instruction and saying, right, this is the system, we have the systems in place, these are the procedures that we are going to follow, we are going to delegate tasks, we follow the rules and procedures, and in the end, we get the job done. In leadership, the focus is on what and why. So what do we have to do and why are we doing this? Whereas management, they're going to focus on how and when. All right, so how are we going to get this job done? We delegate the tasks, and when? What is the deadline? By when do we have to reach our goal? Leaders focuses on the long term, okay, the long term, the operation of people ultimately to reach their vision. Okay, so the focus here is on the long term, whereas in management, it focuses on the bottom line. Okay, what needs to be done in the short term, meet the deadline. What needs to be done in the medium term, what is our deadline? And ultimately in the long term, what are the goals that we want to achieve? What is our deadline? Leaders are born with natural, instinctive leadership skills. Remember, we said it is not a skill that can be taught to somebody else. It is somebody are born with certain qualities. but we can learn to behave more like leaders and to influence other people more. And where management, obviously the person becomes a manager, we said it's not a skill that you are born with, you are appointed into a position, and then obviously you can increase your managerial skills. You can be taught how to be a manager because you can obviously go on courses, management courses on how to be a good manager and how to become a better manager. Very important, as I said, the differences must be clear. So if you are asked this question in an exam, obviously the differences must be clear. Remember, it doesn't have to be tabulated necessarily, but we have to make sure that the differences is clear. Right, so for example, if we say leadership influences human behavior, the first thing we need to say about management is something that corresponds with that. We have to say that it guides human behavior. Okay, so the difference. Some more differences between leadership and management. Leadership means to guide and to lead people to become active participants. So the whole idea with leadership is that everybody in the group, everybody in the business will participate, and it is the leader's job to guide those people and to lead them to increase their involvement. With management, it is the process of getting things done by exercising your authority. Remember, we said a manager is a person that was appointed into a position, and because he was appointed into that position, he has a certain amount of authority. So it's his job to make sure that the job gets done. So the targets are reached and the goals are achieved, and he can use his authority to force people to get things done on the right time. Leaders have power and influence because of their knowledge, because of their skills, and their intelligence. All right, so people look up to leaders because leaders have good knowledge about something, okay, the topic, the task that has to get done. The leader has exceptional skills, okay, he's really good at doing something, and he's very intelligent. Yeah? So people respect their leaders and they look up to their leaders because of these qualities. Whereas managers have power because of the position of authority into which they are appointed. So people might not necessarily feel that the manager is knowledgeable or intelligent, but people have to abide by the rules that the manager have laid down because the manager is in a position of authority, and obviously as a person of authority, he can take disciplinary action against people that don't do as they were told. Leaders are always trying to find more efficient ways of completing their tasks. So a leader will always be looking for the best way. Now to get the job done, but how to get the job done in the best way possible. To how can we allocate our resources in the best way possible, to get that job done in the end. Whereas managers are going to enforce rules on their subordinates to make sure that the tasks are completed. All right, so the manager, remember we said a manager is all about the procedures. Following the rules is important for a manager. Okay, obviously, he's in a position of authority. He has to make sure that the job gets done. So he will enforce those rules. For example, if people have to start working at 8 o'clock, managers are going to enforce those rules. Yeah, they're not going to give you permission to come in later. They're going to say the rule is that you have to start working at 8 o'clock. Okay, it's not about so much how to get the job done. It's just to get the job done. Leaders are motivational and inspirational. As I said, people look up to leaders because of certain qualities that they have and their way of working with people. So leaders are able to motivate people and inspire them to want to become better and then to do their job. Whereas management is instructional. Okay, as I said, management gives instructions. Leaders will motivate people, okay, to get their job done. They will inspire people to want to get the work done. Whereas the manager is just going to bark out instructions and he's going to tell people what to do so that the job can get done. Leaders are more people orientated, okay, so they care more about people's feelings and people's likes and dislikes and how to motivate people, whereas managers are more task orientated. Okay, so they want to get the job done. It's not about the people, it is more about the job at hand. Leaders lead by example and trust and respect. As I said, people generally look up to leaders because we want to follow their example, and we trust them and we respect them, and they motivate us to want to get the job done. Whereas managers, they manage through those management functions. Okay, they do the planning, they do the organizing, the leading, and controlling. All right, so they give instructions, they plan out the instructions, they plan who's going to do what, they organize the resources, they lead, they delegate, and then they control who is doing what. Right, as I mentioned on the previous slide, the differences between leadership and management must be clear. Okay, so the differences must correspond. All right, so on this on the last line here, obviously your leaders does things right. Okay, remember we said it's all about efficient, finding efficient ways of completing tasks. So they do things right. They get the job done, but they want to do it in the right way. Whereas in terms of management, they want to do the right things. They follow the instructions. They expect you to follow the instructions. You are supposed to do the right thing ultimately to get the job done. All right, so when we say that the differences must be clear, it has to correspond. All right, so lead by example, trust and respect, manage by planning, organizing, leading and controlling. Leaders are motivational and inspirational. Management are instructional. Okay, so the differences between the two must be clear.